And now we move on to the green stream element. So as you all know, we like to invite someone interesting to talk to the group. And earlier this year, I had the great pleasure of meeting Mei Lin Fung, who's with us. Hi, Mei Lin, are you there? Yeah, brilliant. Come off off mute.
Okay.
How you doing?
I'm here.
Brilliant.
Hello,
Excellent.
everyone.
So yeah, we had the pleasure of meeting. We had some really interesting discussions, and the thing that stood out in my mind. In fact, I'm going to come to my point after you've introduced yourself a bit, and so. Do you want to share your own slides? Would you prefer to do that, Mary? Or
yeah, I'll do that.
Do that. I'll let me stop the share here. There we go. Cool.
I'll go to the slideshow except I'm being blocked right now. So. Okay, should I just plunge in?
Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself and about people-centered internet and so on.
Great. I was born in Singapore, but I won't tell my whole life story. I co-founded the People-Centered Internet with Vint Cerf, one of the fathers of the internet. I've also worked closely. I was with Douglas Engelbart, who did the mother of all demos. So I'm probably the only person in the world who's worked very closely with two people on the first two nodes of the internet. I'm based in Palo Alto. I am very active in Berlin, Germany, with the Hasselplattner Institute, where I'm a fellow. And then right now I'm concentrating on the Puerto Rico Prosperity Initiative, which I'll be speaking a little bit about. But this year, the theme for the UN Commission on the Status of Women is digital innovation, and I'm the co-chair of it for Europe, Asia Pacific, Middle East, and Africa. And then my organization, People-Centered Internet, led or co-authored 11 of the 70 policy papers for the German Think 7. I think the digital topic has really requires new kind of policy leadership. And we had a sweet spot with being both from the Hasselplattner Institute and from Silicon Valley and from Singapore. So we're active too with the Japan G7 this year. And one of the papers that we wrote for Germany was the clean IT, energy efficient computing. So that gives a little bit about me, but what I think Dom wanted to caught my remark, which is that half the world is coming online, and a lot of them really can only access information through video and audio streaming. And so the importance of the work that you all are doing in the working groups cannot be overstated. So what this just says is that, you know, we have so many people for whom English text access is simply not viable. And if we want to have the rest of the world communicate with each other, streaming is going to play an extremely large role. And we don't want that to become the energy sink that it could become if we just use the current approaches. Because of that, we've got to rethink end-to-end systemic change. And it's all very well to try to treat the pieces you're at, but if the whole thing doesn't hang together, then we really have a problem. And what I'm here to let you know is that there are initiatives which you could be part of to look at everything systematically. So at the semiconductor level, the Department of Energy in the United States is very, very, very active in driving pledges for 1,000 times reduction in energy use by chips, by computers. And that parallels your efforts because you are the applications that sit on top of that. The whole thing has to work together. So I chair the technical committee in IEEE SSIT for sustainability. And this is what our focus is on: energy consumption in digital. And the actual possible reduction in energy is 1 million times. And this paper here, which the links are shown, and you've got the slides, this paper actually talks about how we could get to 1 million times reduction in energy. And you guys are a huge part of that. Now, why is this important? Because within the United States, there are 3 major acts which constitute the first industrial policy in the United States in decades. This is $514 billion. If we don't redesign the end-to-end thing this time, we will never do it. What I want to say is, with me, you've got somebody who is bootstrapping the change for the digital value change, where we have proposed, and it's been accepted by the Department of Commerce, that we would use Puerto Rico as a demonstration site with the private sector. The public, the government of the United States will have the first digital sandbox in a G7 country, and that will be in Puerto Rico, an island that's 35 miles by 100 miles with 3 million people and 57% child poverty rate. So it's kind of a United States, part of the United States, which has the laws, has the regulations, but in fact has very many similarities, especially with the Caribbean and Latin America. But we see that what can be shown in Puerto Rico can ripple out to communities across the Americas and around the world. So, so here's a little bit about what the Prosperity Initiative. We are working, the Puerto Rico, I'm getting a call. I have to stop this. Anyway, I'll try to ignore it. Hopefully you aren't hearing the ringing. The Census Bureau within the United States does something called the Opportunity Project, which is bringing public and private sector together. And we are really looking at what is equitable recovery and resilience. And Puerto Rico will be the site for all 45 US federal agencies to work together. And the Puerto Rico Prosperity Initiative is one for reimagining the value chain so that they're resilient, green, and digitized. That's it.
Awesome, Mei Lin. Absolutely awesome. It's that particular statistic that half the world are coming online and they can't read and write. That's just. I remember when you mentioned that when we first met and being stunned by that, because I'd not thought about it until you mentioned it. You know, it's a dramatic. It's potentially a dramatic growth in streaming, and potentially, depending on how it's rolled out, potentially a dramatic growth in the demand for energy as well, just simply to provide that capability. Anyone, you know, this is very much a fireside chat, but if anyone's got questions or points they'd like to raise, just as a sort of starter one, just on a personal level, what started you off down the people-centered internet, man? What was it? What motivated you?
Well, I was one of the pioneers of CRM, customer relationship management, in the early 90s. And I really saw how it was misused. Enron, Wells Fargo, scandals. But when you digitize something, people can use it to cover a variety of sins. But I never imagined people would do that. And I realized how naive I was. And it became clear to me that the internet was going to have that happen to it. So I went to Vint Cerf. We had actually done the 40th anniversary of TCP/IP in 2014. And I said, we need to say how important it is to put people at the center of the internet. But now the UN Global Digital Compact is going to be signed next year. we run the danger of having the UN Digital Compact really instantiate the awful stuff we have now. We have to show that it can be different, that everyone can thrive. It isn't this world isn't about digital to make a few people rich and have everybody be downtrodden. But we have a year to get that message across.
Amazing. Annie, you've got your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to ask you, hi, it's Annie Krukowska from Animo. Given your international experience and given different cultures and how we use energy and how we consume streaming, can you see could you give us pointers of whether there are different challenges depending on the regionality of consumption or streaming, or are there different approaches? Just sort of any tips of how to start and make it really whole global initiative?
What a brilliant question. Thank you. How to start is to work with the people in those regions, to encourage the people creating video and audio, and work with them, see where they are, what are they trying to do, what are the obstacles that they're facing, help them solve their problems. Your things will get much further by engaging with the people.
And can you see any sort of obvious differences between the regions and cultures and countries, like Europe versus America?
Oh, well, Europe versus America, the first word is privacy that comes up. I do notice differences. The American approach is really just truly, it's, just try it and just see what happens. And in Europe, it's for me overly cautious. And so there's not enough, there's too much inertia. There's not enough rethinking. And that for me is a problem. Now, I was born in Asia. Asia is a much more social, collective responsibility kind of place compared to the Western. I mean, the greatest populations are in China and India, and that's because people learn to survive by depending on each other. So it's a very, very different approach. And I, as an Asian, I do object to Western implications that, gosh, why don't these people care about individual rights? And really, from the Asian side, why don't those people care about social rights?
Interesting.
Thank
really
you so much. Thank you.
Really interesting. Barbara.
Thank you. Very interesting. I'm curious, do you, considering what you just said and the disparity around the world, it seems that the drivers for change happen from multiple sides. One is social change, one is regulation. What kind of work do you do with policymakers in these different parts of the world to see how they can help, hopefully, to level the playing field? And I understand that help and policymakers going together sometimes is not so. Thank you.
So our current paper for the Japan the Japan G7 presidency is really about having a prosperity platform where you have prosperity centers in different countries, the G7 countries, G20 countries, and beyond, where each country is thinking about what are the ethics and principles that they want to have with this great new frontier. So I want to do the analogy of the digital frontier with the American frontier. Remember, people were all huddled on the East Coast, and then there was Louisiana Purchase, and suddenly a huge swath of land was there. Now, if Thomas Jefferson hadn't done the Lewis and Clark expedition, people who were rich with their private armies would have gone in and created kind of a new Europe, right? My kingdom. But the digital frontier needs a Lewis and Clark expedition, needs mapping to let ordinary communities and people go out there and explore and find out what works for them. So that's really what I see as Puerto Rico being kind of the first trading post on the digital frontier, where ordinary people can say, what's important to me? Not what's important to people in Silicon Valley or in Harvard or Cambridge or, you know, Göttingen or in Singapore. What's important to me? What problems am I solving? What foods problems? What shelter? What I'm concerned about for my elders, my children. These are issues that are very, very important, but that counted only in the informal economy. And that's what I want to bring to you as streamers. You are the measurement of the informal economy. We need your documentation of what's going on in the informal economy, because in Puerto Rico, 43% of the economy is informal. It really, really affects what investments in capital are made if you ignore the fact. I'm going to give an informal economy example. When a babysitter is sick, a parent can lose their job. Why isn't there insurance for sick babysitters so that there was some place you could get money to pay somebody to look after your child in a safe way? It's because we have no documentation of whether babysitters are sick or not. So much to the informal economy matters for the formal economy, but we don't document it. And this is where I come to filmmakers and audio streamers to say, help us document the informal economy. We are working with the Census Bureau for the 2040 census to understand what is the data we need so that we measure everything, not just the stuff that people who paid money for care about.
Very thought-provoking, very thought-provoking. Tim?
Yeah, and you know, I have so many questions, especially given what we do, but I'm going to narrow it down. So, Mei Lin, first of all, happy International Women's Day. Very happy to have all of our colleagues on here. So our group, Help Me Stream, takes old first world technology, researches how to lower the power consumption and repackage it into streaming for that 40% of the world that you're talking about. We started first with sort of classroom in a box systems that we're sending out, you know, so early childhood education, et cetera. But one of the things you said really sort of intrigues me, which is what kinds, if we're putting them into places where no one has ever had streaming before, what kinds of content should we put in there for the thought leaders of those markets as opposed to just the early childhood education, et cetera? And specifically Africa is where we've started our initial focus.
It's such a big question, and everybody's struggling with that. I don't have any easy answers for it. My top of the head recommendation is that women's groups really are ones that you could begin to engage with, because when you talk to the educators, they're really thinking about it as formal education, or what is the spending the government does in education. And I think most of us in this room, virtual room, realize that I don't know about you, but I'm not sure that putting good money after bad is going to work. So I think we need to go to the parents and the innovators in education and begin to work with them. Of course, the Ministry of Education is going to tell you we need math and this and that. But what we need is where people can see the problems in their daily lives and want to solve them. That's the biggest impetus for learning. But the educators are sort of mostly missing the boat because they were educated in a different kind of way. So I'm on the board of a group called Design for Change. It works on K-12 education for design thinking. They've trained 76,000 teachers around the world in 40 countries. I'm happy to put you in touch with them, but they're all about video. If you look up Design for Change, it's all full of videos of children changing their communities. And I'm going to just tell a story. 3-year-olds changed their community. A kindergarten group were brought to a playground in their town, and they feel, imagine, do, act are the 4 things for design thinking. Feel, imagine, do, and act. So then they said, well, how do you feel? They said, we're happy because there's a playground, but also it's dirty. So what do you imagine you could do? Well, we could help pick it up, clean up the playground. And then how can you do that? Well, we would like smaller garbage cans so that us 3-year-olds can throw garbage in. And so they went home, back to their classroom, designed the garbage cans, went hand by hand to the mayor's office. The mayor kneels on the floor, listens to their ideas, and of course the garbage cans get put in, and the parents are involved, and the teachers involved, and everybody's involved in cleaning up the playground. And this is when children realize what they do can change the world. And that's what we need in education.
Great.
Lovely story. Yeah.
And I will definitely follow up to get contact information for them.
Well, thank you so much, Mei Lin. Has anyone else got any other questions or discussion points to raise with Mei Lin before we bring things to a close? Which seems like a shame, because I think I'd like to sit here until Mei Lin's president, to be honest. But no, okay. Well, listen. Oh, go ahead.
But just
Barbara.
what a great speaker on today of International Women's Day. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Really cool. And can I also just, I think, on behalf and without consulting the rest of Greening and Streaming, say that as Puerto Rico comes together, I don't know what the timescale for that is, but I should imagine we might have some interesting output from our strategy around the LESS Accord, which might help create models for the deployment of video energy in an energy efficient way across networks. And I hope that I'm speaking on behalf of all our members to say that if that can contribute in some way to your project in Puerto Rico, we'd love to help where we can. So
Thank you. And thanks for the invitation, Dom.
no,
Really nice
lovely.
to meet all of you.
Please stay in touch, and please, keep us looped into whatever's going on in the States and so on. I know Barbara's over there and several of other members, but all the liaison and contact we've got helps us all collaborate and work together. So
yeah, okay, bye-bye.
Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording there and call the members meeting to a close. It's been a really good one this month. I'll speak to you all soon. And get on the app, get on the app, get on the app, get on the app, get on the app.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.